Hi Year 3, I'm going to talk you through our next steps for our shaping up artwork. So at this stage, hopefully you've drawn a sports figure silhouette. The next step is to cut it out as accurately as you can. Now, there are two ways of doing this activity that I'm going to show today. One is using masking tape, and if you don't have that at home, another is using either a wax crayon or an oil pastel, but something white would be ideal. If you haven't got white, then yellow is the next best option. So I'm going to demonstrate the tape technique first. So first of all, I'm actually just going to double my tape over just to hold my silhouette in place. So I'm going to put this on the back of my silhouette here, and I'm going to place it centrally on my paper. Let's just move this one out of the way for a moment. Centrally on my paper where I want my figure to be. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to show you, this is an alternative version. If you don't have tape at home, maybe a teeny bit of blue tack or a teensy weensy blob of glue on your one, because we are going to be removing this eventually, so you don't want it stuck hard to your paper. So I'm just going to put this on the back here and place this guy here. All right, so I'm going to show you my two techniques. Technique one is using the tape. So the way I rip this tape is I just tear it like this. If you're having trouble tearing it, you can use scissors. And you're going to lay this over the top of your figure. And you're going to just kind of crisscross your figure. There doesn't have to be an exact pattern. You're just going to lay this down. Now, this tape should peel off without ripping your paper, but sometimes it's a little bit too sticky. So a piece of advice I was given once for using this tape is tap it off your clothes first. So for example, there's a bit of material there. If I tap it off my clothes first, usually you do your leg or your knee, it takes some of the sticky out of it, which just means that when you do peel it off, it's less likely to rip your paper. So the idea is it would go all the way to the edge. So I'm going to take a new piece and I'm just going to tap it off my clothes just to take some of the stick out of it. And let's see, let's put this one. Let's put this one. I don't want to cover up too much of my figure. Let's put this one there. Okay. And I think I'll do one more. Going, let's see. Let's see. Yeah, there, feels good. Okay, so that's the tape technique. I will just fold these bits over out of the way for now. Now the tape is eventually going to get peeled off. Don't peel the tape off yet. I will tell you when it's time to peel your tape off. So that's what you would do if you've got tape. Now, if you don't have tape, hopefully you do have something like a crayon or an oil pastel. So same thing again, you put your guy down and then you're going to recreate the idea of these tape lines, but using a ruler and your crayon. And the idea is you don't want to go underneath your figure. So I'm going to put a line in here. I'm not going under his arm. I'm just putting another one in. Now your ruler should hold your silhouette in place, so it shouldn't go underneath. Now it's very hard to see what I'm doing, obviously, because I'm doing white oil pastel on a white background. But once I do my next step, hopefully this technique will become a little bit more clear what it is that I'm trying to do. So oil pastel in between these areas. Okay, let's do another bit here. Now, we are going to be using watercolour paints in this activity. So once you've got all these lines drawn in, you want to get your watercolours set up. Now, as a reminder, when we use watercolours, you want to mix them in the lid, okay, in the lid of your tin, because we want to make the colours watery, okay? We don't want to use thick watercolour paint straight onto our paper. We want to dilute it, and I will demonstrate that in a moment. I'm just going to finish doing my lines. Let's put another one here. Now, what I'm also going to do is where his hands are sticking up a little bit, I think I'm going to add an extra little bit of tape just to keep him in position, because we don't want the paint to go underneath where his hands are. So I'm just going to use tape to stop them flapping up. Let's put a little bit there. Okay. That's stopping that hand move, and let's put a little bit here. Okay, so once you've either done your crayon or tape or oil pastel lines, okay, once you've done that, your next step is to get your watercolours. So I've got my brush, I've got my palette here, and I'm going to do some purples and reds. Now, you don't have to do the same colours as me. You might choose a completely different colour scheme. Try not to mix blues and yellows, because you'll end up with kind of a muddy colour. So try and stick to either warm colours or cool colours. So step one is make a little puddle of water in your lid. So just water, okay? And I want to make a puddle, at least the size of, let's say, a penny. Okay, so I've made a puddle there. Let's just bring these other drops in. Okay, so I've made my little puddle. And like I said, I'm going to do kind of blues and purples. So the first thing I'm going to do is mix a really watery blue, and I'm going to start by surrounding my athlete, my sport person, with blue, and I don't want the blue to go underneath my silhouette. So I start with my brush on the silhouette and I brush away from it like this. Okay, so I'm making sure that my brush doesn't go underneath the paper. It goes around the paper and on top of the paper, but not underneath. Okay. So I'm going to mix a little bit more blue here. Okay. I'm going to carry on. Around here. Now, before I move on to another colour, I'm going to blend out my edges, and I'm going to do that just with water. So now I've not quite finished my outline yet, so a bit more water in the lid, about the size of a penny. Bring these drops in. Okay, bit of blue. Okay, and then I'm going to carry on. Remember, I'm brushing away from my silhouette. I don't want the paint to go under the paper. Okay, so once I've done this step, okay, I'm going to blend outwards with just water. So I'm getting plain water and I'm blending it out like this. Okay. Now, we're going to do a technique in a moment called wet on wet. So that means whilst my paint is still wet, because we've blended these edges out, I'm going to create a bit of a purple. So I'm going to add some red to my blue. So I'm going to water that down. I think we need more red in here. Okay, so now I'm getting more of a vibrant purple. And what I'm going to do is tap that all around my wet edges. Okay. There we go. So I've moved that a bit further out. And then what I'm going to do is the same thing I did before it dries, I'm going to blend out these edges, and I think I might go all the way to the edge of my paper for this. Okay. Now, I'm not going to remove my silhouette just yet. I'm going to leave this to dry before I do that. If you're doing the technique with the tape, same thing. Don't remove any tape at all until it's completely finished. And there's actually another layer of detail we're going to be adding to this when it's dry. So this is not the finished thing just yet. Right, now, you don't have to watch the next part of the video. I'm just going to show you the same technique with my tape silhouette. So I'm going to do this very same thing again. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and pour some water to speed this up a bit. So blue, blue, blue. Okay, and then now I'm going to do my purpley layer. Whilst this is still wet. Oh, hang on, I need to blend this out first. Mustn't forget to make sure these edges are wet. Okay, here we go. Okay, and then just using water to blend it out to the edges. Now, the other thing you might want to do before it dries, because once this is dry, this technique isn't going to work, is you might want to get, for example, maybe the colour red on your brush. Get lots and lots of red, and we're going to tap with a pencil our brush as it floats above our picture. So I've got a pencil, I've got my brush, and I'm going to do this. Okay, and then maybe I'll do blue as well, because those are my two colours. You do not have to do red and blue, but if you mix up too many colours, you'll end up with like a mucky brown. So, okay, right, and that is all I'm going to do for this session, but we will be working on these again when they're dry. So don't remove the tape, don't remove your figure, and we'll come back to these at another time. All right then, bye-bye.